Are we seriously paying someone $420,000 to babysit servers that belong in a museum? Owen Patterson's voice cut through the glass-walled executive conference room like a knife. He stood at the head of the table, pointing at the projection screen behind him, gripping his tablet like it contained evidence of corporate fraud. The spreadsheet on the wall showed my compensation package highlighted in red, minus $420,000 annually, plus benefits and performance bonuses tied to security metrics I'd built over 22 years. I was standing about 30 feet away near the coffee station, mug halfway to my lips, watching this show through the transparent walls of our open concept executive floor. My name is Bradley Morrison. I'm 55 years old, and 6 months ago, I was the Chief Information Security Officer at Apex Healthcare Solutions. That morning, I was about to become something else entirely. Owen Patterson was 29 years old. His LinkedIn showed off his Stanford computer science degree, 3 startup exits, and exactly 8 weeks as our new Chief Technology Officer. He joined Apex in early September, with the kind of confidence that comes from disrupting industries without understanding what keeps them running. Through those glass walls, I watched him holding court before our CFO Charles Wilson, 2 board members, and our CEO Margaret Foster. 3 Vanguard board observers were also present, including their lead investment director Patricia Davis, who'd been asking pointed questions during quarterly reviews. This represents exactly the kind of legacy spending that's suffocating our growth potential, Owen continued, expanding his spreadsheet to show departmental comparisons. We're hemorrhaging money on positions that made sense in 2010, but are completely obsolete in today's cloud-first world. I stayed perfectly still, watching with the detached interest of someone who'd witnessed similar corporate theater at 4 other companies during my career. The difference was I'd always observed from a safe distance as other departments faced the efficiency axe. This time, the blade was aimed directly at me. What Owen Patterson didn't know, what none of them sitting in that conference room had bothered to discover, was that 3 years ago, when Vanguard Capital Partners acquired Apex Healthcare Solutions, my attorney had negotiated something extraordinary into my employment agreement, something buried in Article 8, Section 12, Subsection C, something I'd outlined in explicit detail in a memorandum sent to legal counsel, human resources, and executive leadership exactly 21 days ago. That memo had been acknowledged with a brief email from our general counsel Victor Hayes. Received. We'll review and follow up as needed. No follow-up ever materialized. HR filed it in whatever digital graveyard they used for documents they considered procedural noise. Now, watching Owen circle my compensation like a predator who'd spotted wounded prey, I understood we were about to discover what happens when new management ignores institutional warnings. By tomorrow, Apex Healthcare Solutions would realize they hadn't simply eliminated a redundant position. They'd triggered a contractual cascade that would result in $180 million in combined client withdrawals, HIPAA violations, accelerated compensation clauses, and penalty provisions that would fundamentally alter the company's trajectory. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and explain how we got here. I'm a cybersecurity guy. Not exactly thrilling at dinner parties. People's eyes glaze over when I explain what I actually do. But that boring title represented the difference between a $2.8 billion healthcare technology company operating safely within complex regulatory frameworks and that same company facing catastrophic federal enforcement actions for exposing patient data. I've been married to Helen Morrison for 28 years. She's a retired nurse who still volunteers at the community health clinic twice a week. Our son Timothy Morrison is 22, a sophomore at Johns Hopkins studying pre-med. Between his tuition, our mortgage on a ranch house in suburban Maryland, and the comfortable middle-class life we'd built over nearly 3 decades, my $420,000 package wasn't excessive. It was appropriate compensation for someone who'd built and maintained the invisible infrastructure keeping a multi-billion-dollar company compliant with HIPAA, state health regulations, and federal data protection requirements across 31 different jurisdictions. I studied computer science at Virginia Tech, then served 8 years in the Marines doing network security and communications. The Corps taught me discipline, attention to detail, and how to prepare for scenarios others couldn't imagine. After discharge, I earned certifications in cybersecurity while working as a systems analyst at a regional hospital network. I spent 6 years at the Department of Health and Human Services as a senior compliance examiner, developing expertise in the exact regulatory frameworks that keep healthcare companies from imploding under federal scrutiny. My Marine training had taught me something crucial that would serve me well in corporate environments. The importance of preparation, documentation, and understanding your terrain before engaging the enemy. Apex recruited me away from a direct competitor in 2002, right when HIPAA regulations were reshaping the entire industry and companies desperately needed people who understood both the technical and legal sides of patient data protection. Over 22 years, I'd built relationships with regulators, designed security systems, and prevented the kind of breaches that could destroy a company overnight. My work wasn't the kind that generated headlines or closed major deals. I didn't manage profit and loss statements or pitch new clients. Instead, I designed and maintained the complex security architecture that allowed everything else to function. HIPAA compliance, state data protection laws, international privacy frameworks, breach notification protocols, audit requirements, each regulatory body with its own requirements, reporting schedules, examination protocols, and enforcement philosophies. I knew which specific examiner at which particular agency cared about which security markers. I understood which regulations carried serious enforcement teeth, and which ones were essentially performative compliance exercises. I knew how to structure our systems so that when regulatory auditors arrived for surprise examinations, every log file they requested was already organized, cross-referenced, and defensible. That knowledge doesn't transfer easily. It can't be distilled into a training manual or uploaded to a cloud platform. It exists in pattern recognition developed across 22 years of watching regulatory environments evolve, understanding how enforcement priorities shift with political administrations, and building relationships with the actual decision makers who determine whether your company faces a warning letter or a $50 million penalty. Apex's client base consisted of 847 healthcare providers collectively serving 18.3 million patients. Regional hospital networks, specialty clinics, urgent care chains, diagnostic laboratories, rehabilitation centers. These weren't organizations that tolerated even the appearance of data security uncertainty. They purchased our electronic health record platforms and analytics services, but what they really bought was our compliance reputation. That reputation rested almost entirely on frameworks I'd designed, relationships I'd cultivated, and institutional knowledge I'd accumulated over more than 2 decades. When a hospital administrator called at 2 a.m. because their system was flagging potential unauthorized access attempts, they didn't want to talk to a help desk. They wanted someone who understood the regulatory implications and could guide them through crisis management protocols I developed through years of real-world experience. None of this registered as valuable to Owen Patterson when he arrived last September. Owen had been recruited directly by our CEO, Margaret Foster, who joined 10 months earlier following the Vanguard acquisition. Margaret came from a pure technology background, 14 years at various Silicon Valley companies, most recently as COO of a cloud infrastructure provider that went public during the tech boom. She spoke fluently about operational efficiency, scalable systems, and resource optimization. Her vocabulary included phrases like legacy cost structures and digital transformation initiatives, but notably lacked any deep understanding of regulatory complexity in healthcare technology. To Margaret, compliance was something you purchased as a service, not something you built through decades of expertise and relationship management. Owen Patterson was her hand-picked hire, brought in to execute her vision for transforming what she repeatedly called our antiquated operational model into something more aligned with her previous tech industry experience. The problem was healthcare security isn't like optimizing server capacity or streamlining user interfaces. You can't simply upgrade to cybersecurity 2.0 and expect everything to work better. Healthcare data protection requires understanding not just technology, but human behavior, regulatory nuance, and the life and death stakes of protecting patient information. I first encountered Owen during an all-hands technology meeting in late September. He stood at the front of our largest conference room wearing an expensive navy blazer, radiating the particular confidence that comes from never having experienced significant professional failure. Behind him, a presentation was already loaded: digital excellence through strategic innovation. I've dedicated my first 60 days to conducting a comprehensive operational audit, he announced, advancing to a slide showing various departmental expense ratios compared against what he termed industry optimization benchmarks. What I've discovered represents massive opportunity for structural improvement and cost rationalization. He talked enthusiastically about automation, artificial intelligence-driven security monitoring, and eliminating what he called redundant human oversight in areas where cloud solutions had matured sufficiently. His slides compared our security expenditures to carefully selected benchmarks, companies that had either faced substantial data breaches in recent years or hadn't existed long enough to encounter serious enforcement scrutiny. "We are substantially overstaffed in certain legacy functions," he said, scanning the assembled employees with practiced concern. "Not because anyone has underperformed individually, but because our operational approach hasn't evolved to leverage modern cloud capabilities." I could see heads nodding around the room. To people unfamiliar with healthcare security complexity, Owen's presentation sounded reasonable, even visionary. Why wouldn't you want to eliminate inefficiencies and embrace cutting-edge solutions? The audience didn't understand that what Owen called legacy functions were actually the invisible safeguards protecting millions of patients' most sensitive information. After the meeting, he intercepted me near the elevator bank. His approach was smooth, practiced, the kind of interaction that felt spontaneous but had clearly been planned. "Bradley, right?" He extended his hand with a smile that projected warmth without reaching his eyes. "I'd like to schedule time with you next week. Detailed discussion about your infrastructure and deliverables." "Of course," I replied, happy to walk through our security architecture and compliance frameworks. "Perfect. And please bring comprehensive documentation about your systems and processes. I want to understand what can be automated effectively and what genuinely requires human judgment." That phrase, human judgment, was delivered with just enough skepticism to make his position clear. In Owen's worldview, human judgment was generally a liability to be minimized through better technology. That conversation should have been my first clear warning. But I'd survived 4 corporate acquisitions, 5 different CEOs, and countless reorganization initiatives. I knew how to document value, demonstrate necessity through metrics and risk assessments. I'd weathered storms before by proving worth through data and results. In retrospect, that confidence was naive. I was approaching this like a traditional corporate challenge where competence and documentation would prevail. But Owen wasn't evaluating my performance or effectiveness. He was executing a predetermined conclusion that my role represented unnecessary expense. The meeting occurred the following Tuesday in Owen's newly renovated office on the executive floor. He'd already redecorated completely minimalist furniture, height-adjustable standing desk, 3 large monitors displaying real-time operational dashboards he probably didn't fully comprehend. The walls were bare except for his framed Stanford diploma and a poster about embracing disruptive innovation. "Bradley, thanks for making time," he said, gesturing toward a chair positioned across from his desk. "I've been conducting detailed analysis of your department's resource utilization. Walk me through why healthcare security requires this level of investment." I spent 55 minutes explaining our regulatory landscape in detail, the jurisdictional complexity spanning federal and state authorities, the relationship management with 43 different agency contacts across multiple regulatory bodies, the customized monitoring frameworks required for each distinct client segment, the audit preparation protocols that had kept us violation-free and penalty-free for 13 consecutive years. Owen nodded periodically, taking notes on his tablet, asking questions that initially seemed thoughtful but gradually revealed fundamental gaps in his understanding. He approached healthcare security like it was consumer app development, focused on efficiency metrics rather than understanding the catastrophic consequences of failure. Couldn't the majority of this monitoring be handled through existing cloud platforms? He asked halfway through my presentation. I've been briefed on several vendors offering AI-driven security solutions at a fraction of current personnel costs. This was the central misunderstanding. Owen saw technology as a replacement for expertise, not as a tool that required expertise to implement effectively. "Those platforms are useful tools," I explained patiently. "They're effective for data aggregation, automated scanning, and report generation. But healthcare security isn't simply about checking boxes on compliance forms. It requires judgment calls when regulations overlap or conflict. It requires relationship management when issues arise that need contextual discussion rather than automated responses. It requires institutional knowledge about how different regulators prioritize different concerns based on current enforcement trends." "Give me a concrete example," he said, leaning back in his ergonomic chair with the expression of someone indulging a lengthy explanation they didn't really want to hear. "Last year, we identified unusual access patterns in our pediatric clinic client database, technically within normal parameters, but showing subtle anomalies suggesting potential unauthorized access attempts. An automated system would have logged everything as normal activity and moved on." I paused, making sure he was following. Instead, I called their IT director directly. walked through my analysis, and we discovered a terminated employee had been systematically accessing patient records using shared credentials. We prevented what would have been a massive HIPAA violation affecting 12,000 children's medical records. Owen was typing notes, but I could tell he was already formulating his response, rather than absorbing the implications. That client renewed their contract for 5 years and upgraded to our premium security tier, I continued. The account generates $23 million annually in revenue. More importantly, it strengthened our reputation in the pediatric healthcare market, leading to 4 additional client acquisitions worth another $67 million combined. Owen made another note on his tablet, but I could see his expression hadn't changed. The numbers meant nothing to him because he didn't understand the context that made them possible. Interesting case study, but is that approach sustainable as we scale operations, he asked. Can we really afford senior personnel making individual judgment calls on every potential anomaly? What happens when you're not available to make those calls? That word sustainable became his weapon over the following weeks. Every conversation, every email exchange, every hallway interaction eventually circled back to whether my role, my team, my entire operational approach was sustainable given the company's evolution toward what he termed modern efficiency standards. I started documenting everything meticulously. Every question he posed, every suggestion he made, every hint that my position was being evaluated, not for performance outcomes, but for cost reduction opportunities. My Marine training had taught me the importance of maintaining detailed records, especially when you suspect you're being set up for elimination. In the Corps, we had a saying, prepare for the battle you don't want to fight. I'd learned that lesson during my deployments. The enemy gets a vote in your plans, and the best defense is thorough preparation for scenarios you hope never materialize. In mid-October, I had lunch with Nathan Stevens, an old colleague who'd recently departed from a competitor after their security director was terminated during a strategic restructuring initiative. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown, the kind of place where healthcare technology professionals conduct sensitive conversations away from corporate ears. Let me guess the pattern, Nathan said, after I described Owen's persistent questioning about operational sustainability. New executive with consulting background thinks cybersecurity is basically a software subscription you can purchase instead of actual expertise. That's essentially accurate, I replied. He keeps asking why we can't just automate everything with cloud platforms. Nathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Bradley, they terminated our director 5 months ago, replaced him with a junior manager and a cloud platform that cost $180,000 annually. Want to know what happened last month? Tell me, HHS showed up for a routine HIPAA audit. They found 31 documentation gaps, 14 access control violations, and 6 potential material breaches. We're now facing enforcement penalties in the 8-figure range. He paused to take a sip of coffee, letting the weight of that information settle. Plus, we've lost 5 major hospital clients who cited security concerns in their contract termination letters. Each one of those clients had been with us for over a decade. I felt a familiar tightness in my stomach, the same sensation I'd experienced in the Marines when reconnaissance reports suggested incoming trouble. The director we fired tried warning them during his exit interview. Nathan continued. He documented every single risk in writing, submitted a comprehensive transition plan that would have taken 8 months to implement safely. They didn't care because they were saving $38,000 annually on his salary and benefits. Nathan leaned forward, lowering his voice. Now they're facing $45 million in regulatory fines and another $89 million in lost revenue from client defections. The junior manager they promoted? He lasted 6 weeks before having a complete breakdown. The company's hemorrhaging talent because word gets around in our industry. Nobody wants to work for an organization that throws experienced people under the bus to hit quarterly cost targets. I drove back to the office thinking about that conversation, about the predictable pattern of organizations that mistake cost-cutting for strategic efficiency. These companies always learned the same lesson the hard way, that some roles can't be optimized away without catastrophic consequences. That evening, I retrieved my employment contract from our home office and read through it carefully for the first time in 3 years. Helen Morrison was grading community college nursing exams in the living room while I spread the documents across my desk under the warm glow of my reading lamp. Article 8, Section 12, Subsection C practically leaped off the page. This language had been negotiated by my attorney, Janet Fisher, during the Vanguard acquisition process. At that time, the private equity firm's due diligence team had identified significant key personnel risk concentrated in my specific role. The due diligence report had been explicit. Apex's regulatory compliance and security reputation rests almost entirely on institutional knowledge concentrated in a single individual. Loss of this expertise without proper succession planning represents material risk to client retention and regulatory standing. The contractual language was their protective mechanism, a way to ensure that if my institutional knowledge disappeared suddenly, there would be financial consequences substantial enough to discourage careless management decisions. The clause specified that if my position was eliminated or materially restructured without following specific protocols, minus including a 180-day transition period, formal board approval, documented risk mitigation plans, and client notification procedures, it would trigger automatic acceleration of all deferred compensation, unvested equity grants, and performance bonuses tied to security metrics accumulated over my entire 22-year tenure. More significantly, it included penalty provisions if my departure caused disruption to client contracts. Several of our largest healthcare providers had contractual continuity clauses requiring notification and approval of any changes to senior security personnel. Those weren't suggestions or preferences, they were contractual rights with termination provisions, allowing clients to exit agreements without penalty if requirements weren't satisfied. I'd warned Vanguard about these complexities during acquisition due diligence. They'd built these protections specifically because their financial analysis clearly demonstrated what would happen if institutional knowledge concentrated in key roles disappeared suddenly without proper succession planning. But that was 3 years ago. New executive leadership, new operational priorities, new managers who hadn't participated in those original negotiations and apparently hadn't bothered reviewing the documentation that came with their acquisition. Helen appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of tea, her reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. "You look concerned," she observed, setting one mug on my desk next to the neat stacks of legal documents. "Work problems, potentially," I said. "The new CTO seems determined to eliminate my position as part of his efficiency initiative." She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same spot where we'd discussed Timothy's medical school applications and financial planning 2 years earlier. Our son's tuition at Johns Hopkins was substantial, but we'd planned carefully for that expense. "Are you worried about finding another job?" she asked. "Your reputation in the industry is solid. Nathan Stevens found something within a month after his situation. It's not about finding another position, Helen. It's about them understanding what they're actually eliminating." I showed her the contract language, walked through the protection clauses Janet Fisher had negotiated, explained the client contract implications in detail. Helen read through everything with the methodical attention she'd once applied to reviewing medical charts during her nursing career. "They really didn't review any of this?" she asked, finally. "The current leadership team wasn't part of the original acquisition negotiations. Owen's been here 8 weeks. Margaret came from a completely different industry where regulatory compliance means something entirely different. They see numbers on a spreadsheet representing cost, not the invisible systems that protect those numbers from regulatory catastrophe." Helen set down her tea and looked at me with the direct gaze that had helped her navigate 30 years of healthcare crises. "What happens if they proceed with their plan? Then they learn what expensive actually means." On October 23rd, I drafted and sent a formal memorandum to Owen Patterson, Margaret Foster, our General Counsel Victor Hayes, and Board Liaison Patricia Davis. The subject line was direct: security role restructuring, contractual considerations and risk assessment. I outlined Article 8, Section 12, Subsection C, explicitly, including the full text of the clause. I detailed client contract implications, attaching a comprehensive spreadsheet showing which specific healthcare providers had continuity requirements in their master service agreements. I included a detailed risk assessment projecting potential exposure if my role was eliminated without following contractual protocols. The document was 14 pages long, meticulously researched, and professionally devastating in its implications. I'd learned in the Marines that the best way to avoid a firefight is to make the enemy understand the true cost of engagement before the shooting starts. Owen responded within 2 hours via email. "Thanks for the input, Bradley. We'll take this under advisement as we finalize our planning." Victor Hayes sent a separate message. "Bradley, I'll review the contractual language with outside counsel and coordinate with HR. Appreciate you flagging this." That was their entire response. No follow-up meeting, no detailed review session, no indication they understood the magnitude of what I'd outlined, just acknowledgement and filing away, probably in the same digital graveyard where they'd stored countless other documents they considered procedural noise. 3 weeks later, I received a calendar invitation. Strategic Workforce Planning Session, Executive Conference Room, All Leadership, November 15th, 9 a.m. I knew immediately what this meeting represented. The choreography was too familiar from similar sessions at previous companies during my career. These weren't collaborative discussions about organizational development. They were carefully scripted termination events designed to create the illusion of due process, while witnesses documented that proper procedures had been followed. The night before the meeting, I sat in our home office reviewing my comprehensive documentation folder. Every email exchange, every memo, every warning I'd sent over the past 2 months was organized chronologically. Helen Morrison came in around 10:30 carrying tea and her reading glasses. "You're still working," she observed, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Final preparation for tomorrow's meeting," I said. "The workforce planning session." She'd overheard enough of my conversations with Janet Fisher over the past month to understand something significant was developing. Are they really going through with it? All indications suggest yes. Owen's convinced he can replace 22 years of institutional knowledge with a cloud subscription service. Helen reached across the desk and touched my hand. "Bradley, whatever happens tomorrow will be fine. Timothy's tuition is manageable. The mortgage has only 8 years left, and your reputation will open doors anywhere in the industry." "I know we'll manage financially," I said, "but this isn't primarily about finding my next position. This is about them learning to value institutional knowledge before they destroy it carelessly." I arrived at the office at 8:45 a.m. on November 15th. The executive conference room occupied the northeast corner of our 32nd floor headquarters with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Baltimore Harbor. It was a beautiful setting for what was essentially a corporate execution. Margaret Foster sat at the head of the polished conference table, expression professionally neutral. Owen Patterson positioned himself to her right, laptop already connected to the projection system, radiating the confidence of someone who believed he was about to solve a major operational inefficiency. Victor Hayes reviewed documents with unusual intensity. Charles Wilson looked distinctly uncomfortable, adjusting his tie repeatedly and avoiding direct eye contact. The 3 Vanguard board observers were present, including Patricia Davis, whose sharp financial mind had been asking pointed questions during recent quarterly reviews. Owen stood and activated his presentation. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this important workforce optimization session. As we approach year-end planning, it's essential we examine our organizational structure with fresh perspective and strategic clarity." The first slide appeared. Operational excellence through strategic restructuring. Today's discussion focuses on legacy operational roles that may no longer align with our growth trajectory and modern technological capabilities, he continued smoothly. The next slide showed departmental expense breakdowns. Cybersecurity represented 28% of operational overhead, highlighted in bright red with an arrow pointing specifically to my position and compensation package. "I want to be absolutely clear," Owen said, his tone carefully modulated for maximum reasonableness. "This discussion isn't about individual performance or historical contributions. Bradley Morrison has been a valued team member throughout his tenure. However, security technology has advanced substantially over the past decade. Cloud platforms can now handle regulatory monitoring with 99.8% accuracy at a fraction of current personnel costs. Past tense has been a valued team member, not is." The language choice was deliberate and telling. Another slide appeared. Security Modernization Roadmap, Phase 3 showed legacy role transition, with estimated annual savings of $430,000. No name was listed, but everyone in the room knew which position that represented. Patricia Davis spoke up, her voice measured and professional. "What's the proposed transition timeline, and what risk mitigation protocols are being implemented?" "Excellent questions," Owen replied smoothly. "We're proposing a 90-day knowledge transfer period to our newly hired security manager, with full transition to cloud monitoring systems by February 1st. 90 days, not the 180 days explicitly required by my contract." Victor Hayes raised his hand slightly. "Have we conducted comprehensive review of contractual implications of this restructuring? HR has confirmed all employment agreements include standard at-will termination provisions," Owen said confidently. "This is a legitimate business efficiency decision, fully within our operational authority." He clearly hadn't read Article 8, Section 12, Subsection C, or he'd read it and fundamentally misunderstood its implications. "Any other questions before we move to implementation specifics?" Owen asked, scanning the room with practiced confidence. I could have remained silent, let them continue their presentation, signed whatever paperwork they'd prepared, accepted their severance package, and let them congratulate themselves on decisive leadership and operational efficiency. But sometimes the most effective tactical response is the one nobody anticipates. I stood slowly, reached into my leather portfolio, and placed a sealed manila envelope directly in front of Margaret Foster. "I'd like to save everyone considerable time and legal expense," I said calmly. The room went completely silent. Owen's confident expression flickered momentarily like a television signal experiencing interference. "Bradley, there's no need for dramatic gestures," Margaret said, attempting to maintain control of the meeting. "We haven't even discussed transition support and severance arrangements." I removed my building access badge and security credentials from my wallet, placing them precisely on top of the envelope. The plastic hitting polished wood made a sharp sound that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "Inside that envelope is my resignation, effective immediately," I said, looking directly at Margaret. "Also included is a copy of Article 8, Section 12, Subsection C of my employment agreement, along with detailed analysis prepared by my attorney regarding contractual exposure and client contract implications. I believe your legal team will want to review this material very carefully and very quickly." Victor Hayes had already reached for the envelope. He opened it with the careful precision of someone handling potentially explosive material, scanned the first page, then flipped to the contract excerpt I'd highlighted in yellow. I watched his face transform incrementally, eyes widening, jaw tightening, color draining slightly as the implications became clear. "What does it say?" Margaret asked, her voice sharp now, the professional neutrality cracking visibly. Victor looked at Owen, then at Patricia Davis, then back at the documents. "It's a key personnel protection clause. If Bradley's role is terminated or materially restructured without a 180-day transition period and formal board approval, it triggers immediate acceleration of all deferred compensation, unvested equity grants, and performance bonuses accumulated over his entire tenure." The room went completely quiet except for the subtle hum of the building's HVAC system and distant traffic far below. "How much acceleration are we discussing?" Charles Wilson asked, his voice strained. Victor was still reading, his finger tracing lines of text with increasing concern. 22 years of deferred performance bonuses indexed to security metrics and company valuation. Equity adjustments tied to Vanguard acquisition terms, plus, he paused, reading more carefully, plus penalty provisions if his departure causes client contract disruptions. Several major healthcare providers have termination rights if senior security personnel change without proper notification and approval. Owen had gone visibly pale. "That wasn't included in the HR summary documentation. HR doesn't review executive protection clauses," Victor said quietly. "Those are negotiated directly during acquisitions and maintained by legal counsel. They're not part of standard employment documentation." I pushed my chair back from the table with deliberate calm. "Thank you for the opportunity to contribute here over the past 22 years. I wish everyone stability and success in the coming months." As I walked toward the door, I heard Margaret's voice, tight and controlled now. "Victor, what's our total exposure here? Give me preliminary numbers." I didn't wait for his answer. The door closed behind me with a soft click that felt remarkably final. By the time I reached the parking garage, my phone was buzzing insistently. 6 missed calls from office numbers I recognized but chose not to answer. 3 days later, Philip Anderson from Vanguard called personally. "Bradley, the board recognizes there were substantial failures in how this restructuring was handled. We'd like to resolve this matter efficiently and professionally." The final settlement was executed within a week. $680,000 in accelerated compensation, plus consulting fees to help transition my institutional knowledge properly over 6 months. Owen Patterson was quietly reassigned to special projects reporting directly to Margaret. Margaret Foster announced her departure 2 months later for a new opportunity in pure technology. Within a month, Dorothy Martinez from Secure Health Partners in Boston called with an offer I couldn't refuse: senior partner, equity stake, complete autonomy to build my own cybersecurity team focused exclusively on healthcare compliance. Today, sitting in my corner office overlooking Boston Harbor, I've learned that the most satisfying professional revenge isn't emotional or vindictive. It's contractual, documented, and entirely self-executing. Sometimes you have to walk away from everything you've built to discover what you're genuinely worth. And when you finally find people who see you as the solution instead of the problem, you understand you've made the right decision. The real lesson isn't about contracts or revenge. It's that your true value becomes crystal clear only when someone tries to throw it away carelessly. In the Marines, we called it tactical patience, letting the enemy make the first move, then responding with overwhelming force at the moment of maximum advantage. 22 years of institutional knowledge doesn't disappear when you eliminate a position. It walks out the door and takes $180 million worth of client relationships with it. In business, your greatest protection isn't your performance record or loyalty, it's understanding the legal framework that governs your value and having the patience to let others reveal their own ignorance. The most expensive mistakes companies make aren't from bad decisions, but from good people who didn't bother reading the fine print before making those decisions.